everyone, this is Kelly from The Truth in Story, and here I have a walkthrough to do of the Golden Tarot, the Visconti Sforza deck by Mary Packard. Illustrations, I'll have to look in the book to see, I can't remember the name of them, of course it's not on. This was taped to the back of it, which I pulled it off. So this is the Visconti Sforza deck, is one of the oldest and most complete tarot decks in existence, dating back to the mid-15th century, commissioned by Filippo Maria Visconti, Duke of Milan, and his successor Francesco Sforza. Many of the cards portray members of the Sforza and Visconti families in period garments. And so this is obviously a reproduction of it. It is not a copy of the original where you're seeing, you know, like the age and all this kind of things. This is, but she did a really good job. I think the illustrator did. Obviously, you don't have the original one to compare it side by side, but I have pulled them up on my phone, and I think she did a really lovely job. There are a couple missing cards. This is the most complete deck, and it's missing the Devil card, the Tower card, I think one of the swords, and one of the coins perhaps. So there's 4 cards that just have to be reproduced in the likeness of the rest of them. But I think she did a really wonderful job. I wasn't looking for an expensive version of this. I simply wanted to have the cards as sort of the reference, and I'm doing a lot of studying of kind of tarot history, and I just wanted to have, it's the first complete one that we have. I don't know that the Solabusca was considered to be a little bit earlier than this, but the Solabusca isn't quite as we know the tarot. The major are all heroes, and the minors are illustrated, but they're again with all sort of mostly heroes and heroines. It's not the setup that we consider tarot today, where this is very recognizable as tarot today. And this was from, I think, 1451. So it comes in a really nice box. So what company is this? Race Point Publishing, it says. It comes with a nice sturdy box. It's beautiful. You can see it's matte with sort of shiny glossed embossing like on it, so it's quite lovely. It's very sturdy. It will look beautiful on a bookcase. You know, they just did a really good job. The top flips open like this, which is really nice, and then within it you have the deck of cards in another sleeve protecting it, which is nice. You have what I consider probably a useless cloth. And you have a hardback guidebook that all went into this box. So let me set that to the side. Let's take a look at the useless cloth first. So here we just have a, fake silk, polyester, I don't know, whatever you call that, a silk. Very bright. It looks blue in here, but it's actually a very bright purple. But it's quite small, and these cards are the size of this box. So you can probably do a 3 card on here. If you want to do a 4 card or like a cross, you probably have to do it diagonal. It just really isn't overly feasible for this particular deck. But at least it's not the paper one. I always complain about the paper ones, even more so, because I think those are even more useless. But, that's a nice touch. So then we have, again, the hardback book, and then this is in another tuck box, which I quite like, because if you don't want to keep it on your shelf, if you don't have the space for it, or, for example, I have, sort of my historical study type decks in a row in order of time frame, and so this really isn't going to fit in with that, where I can just put this there and be able to have it set. So I quite like that there's a secondary tuck box here. It's nothing fancy, but it's a tuck box, and at least it will protect the cards, which are, as you can see, very large. The original I'm just going to actually slide this back in here so we don't have things falling everywhere. The original deck is quite large as well and is quite gilded, and many of them have holes punched into them. They believe that, or one of the things that I've read supposing as to why they've survived so intact is that they probably weren't read with. They were probably hung up more as mini painting, you know, a decoration. Can you imagine that, like a whole wall of gorgeously painted tarot cards on your wall, because they had holes in the tops of the cards. So turn that off. So yeah, so it's a very large deck. So for example, this is quite a large tarot deck, which is the Raven Phelan's Brain Dead, Dreams of Gaia. And so you can see it is quite a bit taller than that. And this is already a large card. Here's more of a standard tarot. And you can see the size. What else should we put next to it? Here's a Lenormand card, or like a playing card. It's a large deck. You know, you're not going to be doing Celtic crosses unless you're going to sit on the floor. Which I prefer not to do with my decks. The backing is really beautiful. And the fronts have a gold kind of edge around it that is a little bit metallic-y. There's not any other gold. The original did have like gold inlay, and you can get a low scarabeo version for around the same price. So this was, I think, $22 or $23. You can get a low scarabeo that does have massive gilding in it, but it's got black edges and it has all of the different language titles up the sides, and I just couldn't deal with that. I quite like the look of this. Obviously, I need to put gold on the edging, the edge of it, so that it looks finished and beautiful. But I think this is really a beautiful rendition for a cheap price. You can get, obviously, other reproductions. Annika, my friend Annika, aka Quiffin, she got a beautiful, I think it was a 1977 reproduction that is gorgeous. I will put a link to her video below. She was so excited to get it. That is a joy to watch just because of that. But I just was looking for kind of a nice but cheap version, and I showed a couple of options to my friend Otzi, who you know, collects much more better higher end reproductions, just to see what would be the closest, and she thought this was a good version of it. In terms of the artist, I think, did a really good job recreating it. But I'm going to set these aside for just a minute while we take a look at the book. So of course it comes with this nice little hardback with this beautiful, like, antiqued goldy coppery front part. It's just really beautifully done. I think they did a good job. This has a preface by Robert M. Place. In this forward here. So let's just look at this really quick. I'm going to go ahead and read this because it kind of gives a quick synopsis here. Decks of playing cards have existed in Europe since the 14th century. The earliest deck was composed of 4 suits and was structured like a modern deck with 10 pips and 3 courts in each suit, except the suits were coins, cups, swords, and batons. In Renaissance Italy between 1410 and 1442, 4 queens and a 5th suit composed of a parade of mystical, enigmatic figures were added to this deck, and the tarot was born. Since the late 18th century, occultists have considered the tarot an indispensable part of their magical equipment. To provide it with what they consider to be a suitable ancient pedigree, they made up numerous spurious histories and associations for the deck. It was given an origin in ancient Egypt and said to be the creation of ancient Kabbalists or of Egyptian priests under the guidance of the mythical sage Hermes Trismegistus. Not all of the insights of the occultists were wrong, but these assertions are false. At their worst, the occultist associations have become a wall of confusion that blocks one from appreciating the mystical heritage that is preserved in the deck. The closest we can come to an appreciation of the tarot's authentic tradition is to contemplate the oldest existing cards. All of the early examples are sumptuous miniature works of art composed of paint and gold leaf on heavy paper and designed by artists for noble patrons. All of these decks are missing cards. 15 of the existing decks were created for the Visconti family, the rulers of Milan. One of those decks, the Visconti Sforza Tarot, has the distinction of being the most complete of all the earliest decks. Here we can see for the first time a deck with a fool and 19 of the 21 trumps that are now considered standard. Only the Devil and the Tower are absent. In fact, in 1499, when Milan was conquered by Louis XII of France, the Tarot of Milan became the model for the French deck known as the Tarot of Marseille, which was later discovered by the occultists and came to be considered the standard for the world. In the Golden Tarot, Mary Packer does an excellent job of reintroducing the Visconti Sforza Tarot to a modern audience. She provides insights into the history and symbolism and so on and so forth. Once again, we can see that the tarot expresses a timeless mystical philosophy which is an inheritance that we cannot afford to lose. And so then we go forward. Now, the deck it talks about the history of the Visconti family, through various anniversary cards, Italian pageantry, discussion of sort of the history, discussion of it as a game, which was what it was. It was played as a game. The style, it talks about the artist Bonifacio Bembo's, which is what the version that this deck was taken from, the artist. Talks about the first decks. It talks about the whole idea of how we used to think, the different mythologies behind tarot decks. Talks about the Atella deck, which also added different cards in. And so we have a lot of history here, which is quite interesting to read. And so I'll talk about alchemy. There's really a lot of information here, which I think is really beautiful. And so then it even goes into modern interpretations with Carl Jung and the idea of archetypes, right? So you have quite a lot of information to read, and then it goes into the actual cards itself. Now, I'm trying to see, I saw it when I read through this, when I just received this morning, and I read through this part. But I'm trying to see who is the illustrator. I hate that you have to look so hard for the person who did such an amazing job. Okay, I guess I could have just looked on the front page. Illustrations by Rachel Clowes, Clowes. And I personally think she did an amazing job. I will try to show you a couple on my phone. So you have this chunk, about 47 pages of history, which is quite nice to have. And then it goes into a full color image of the card, normal tarot size. Still a little taller than tarot size in the book, with a base kind of historical reference, and then an upright and a reversed meaning for the card. And so that goes through, it talks about the 4 suits with their, interesting because it talks about the 4 suits. And it breaks it down by the element, or the suit, cups, swords, batons, and coins, the association of joy, sorrow, country, and money, by class, clergy, nobility, peasants, and merchants, the element that we are aware of, water, air, fire, and earth, and then the astrological sign of Scorpio, Aquarius, Leo, and Taurus. So that's quite interesting there to have. And then of course you have a much smaller description of sort of the cup suit, and then what each of the cups of the cards might mean. And then you get a little bit more because sometimes they are actually people. So we have the seated queen here with her sword, so it kind of describes it a little bit more. And so that goes through the minors. And then we have a little bit of the journey for tarot, of your, more like your journey with tarot. A 3-card spread, a 5-card spread, and a sample reading after it, and then the Celtic Cross, which, I'm sorry, with this deck, you're going to need quite a large table to be able to accomplish that spread. So that's what you have here. But, you know, the real joy of the history is very important. And again, I think she does a really nice job. It's not going to be exhaustive. This is a smaller book. The entire pages are 143, but I think that she does a really good job with it. But let me show you real quick an example of the original so you can kind of see. Let me move this in. Because obviously there would not have been a guidebook with these cards. So, you know, she does provide a guidebook for us to read from if we don't, you know, have our associations already. But the real thing here is this kind of reproduction to the deck. So, but let me, I have pulled up here, I wanted to show you a couple images. So here is the cups. Here is the original cup. Now, obviously, you're not going to see coloration well because it's my phone, but you can see that she does a really, I think, amazing job showing let's see, who do we have here? Looks like the Queen of Pentacles. I just wanted to show you a couple so that you can see that I think that the artist here, I think, did a lovely job recreating these. So here we have the Queen of Pentacles. And again, this, you know, is very bright because it's the phone on the camera, as well as there's a lot of gilding here that isn't here. But other than that, I think that she did an amazing job with the tapestries in the background, the bits of green. I think that I really do think she did a fantastic job here. Let me see if I can find another. I think that would be the baton, this one. I have it zoomed in, but that's going to mess with the coloration. So this is not the greatest example, but you can see, I think that I'm really impressed with how well she did reproducing the images. She really wasn't trying to put her artistic touch on it. It doesn't feel to me like. It feels as if she was simply trying to recreate the cards so that we have access to those. Oh, I just messed up. I wanted to show one other one, but okay. So now let me go back. The other ones are darker pictures, so it's a little harder. I think this is the Emperor. She definitely lightened them up because some, you know, they're quite old, and so they are also very, very dark. But she stays quite true to the red shoes, the color of the pedestal, the green, the tapestry in the background, the insignia on the hat, the thing that he's holding here, the baton, the blue here, you know, everything. I think she does an amazing job staying quite true to the original. I think, again, okay, I won't say it 12 times, but I'm quite impressed with it. You know, that's obviously your concern. If you're getting a reproduction that's been repainted, you want it to be as close to the original as possible, and I think she succeeds very well. So let's take a look at these cards. I'm not really going to read from the guidebook because I think, again, the purpose of this deck is to see these cards. This isn't the guidebook that, you know, the divinatory meanings and stuff are simply Mary Packard's. Like, that's not, that wasn't available at the time of this particular deck. Well, I'll go ahead and do it. So somebody might just want to be getting this for reading, so I should be thorough. Let me go to the Fool. I got it more for, I'm going to read with it, but I also got it more for. You'll notice that in the Visconti, There are no numbers or titles on the major arcanas. That was pretty typical. This would have been El Matto. This well-known character from the Renaissance was originally called El Matto, the madman. He wears tattered clothing, long socks with the feet torn away, and feathers protruding from his wild hair. All indications that the figure is ill prepared for life and must learn every lesson through trial and error. Representing the archetype of innocence, the fool is the proverbial babe in the woods who has yet to learn lessons through experience. Though clueless, he is at the very beginning of his journey to attain wisdom. Upright innocence, auspicious start of new adventures and opportunities, enthusiastic willingness to make a fool of oneself to reach one's higher self. Reversed, faulty choices and bad decision making are in effect or loom ahead. So it's not very long information, because I think that the real goal of this is the history and, again, the vision of it, but certainly enough to be able to read with. Slide that out of the way so that we can take a look at the beautiful cards. So here we have the Magician, and oftentimes in the older tarot decks, the Magician was less about the all-powerful magician who has all the elements in his possession, and more that street magician or illusionist in some of the older decks. Many of these cards represent different members of the Visconti or Sforza family. Some of them are get kind of thinking that this is perhaps might be so-and-so and might be so-and-so. I'm not really going to go into all that. You can definitely get history books on the Visconti Sforza. You can get this deck and read the history. But I do want to do a walkthrough, because just as a deck, just as a gorgeous deck, it's beautiful, and I just want you to be able to see this is where the roots of tarot are, and it's completely recognizable, which is really an amazing thing to think about over the course of time. Here we have the very regal Empress, the Emperor, as we showed before. We do have the Eagle here, the Hierophant. He's doing, we have the cross, although it's not the one we traditionally see, a kind of similar hat. The hand signal, we don't see the supplicants here, but I think he's sweet looking. The Lovers. I find this one to be interesting because many of the older styles, certainly the Marseille decks, are, you have Hercules choosing between two women. And so this is more of the traditional, how we would see the Lovers card today, which I think is interesting. Here we have a female Chariotess, which I'm assuming is the Empress. I would guess that is the Empress, because she's still holding that. She's holding kind of the same thing that the Emperor was holding. Here we have Justice. Now again, these are not numbered, but traditional like Marseille decks and things have Justice at 8 and Strength or Fortitude at 11. So that's how these are ordered. The Hermit, this is also known as the Father Time, or just Time, or sometimes the Old Man, sometimes the Old Bent Man, I've heard. Here we have the Wheel of Fortune, and I quite like this because we have really that on the back of the peasantry, we have apparently these little sayings here are basically like, I will reign, because she's climbing up to, this person's climbing up to reign. I am reigning kind of idea. I can't remember the exact words. And then I did reign, so we have the cycle, the rise and fall of the ruling class on the backs of the peasantry. Here we have the Strength card or Fortitude card, and this, people think that he's beating the lion, but if you look, my friend Otzi pointed out, he's looking over here and the lion's looking over here, and they are joined together with attacking their foe. So quite lovely. Though you do sometimes see people wrestling the lions, like really violently wrestling in some of the older decks. Here we have the Serene Hanged Man. I mean, so recognizable to the foot positions, the hands behind the back, even the blonde hair. Interesting death card, isn't it? I don't know what this snake is supposed to be. Let's see if the book says anything, if we know what's going on there. This eerily animated skeleton was a starring figure in an allegorical work of art called The Dance of Death, created in response to a plague that decimated the population in the 14th century. Death holds a bow in its left hand and an arrow in its right. Its piercing eyes stare menacingly out of deep, shadowed eye sockets. We have seen that strength, having triumphed over unrestrained ambition, has been trumped by the pain and suffering of the hanged man, and now by death. It is no coincidence that Death's rank in the tarot cards is the unlucky 13, but it's obvious from Death's position in this allegory that all is not lost. There are many more trumps left in the deck. Apparently, hanging upside down was a punishment for traitors. Political figures were sometimes depicted hanging upside down as a form of derision. The hangman represents pain and loss of ego necessary for the soul to complete in its sphere. So you are giving something up, right? You're giving something up, your pride, in order to gain something. So it still works even in the modern interpretation of the hanged man, who is sort of sacrifice, that idea of sacrifice, where before it was more of a forced sacrifice of ego and pride, right, in order to gain some enlightenment. Here we have Temperance. Beautiful. The Devil. Now, the Devil is one of the cards that was not in the surviving cards from the Visconti Sforza deck. It has been recreated picturing the devil as it might have appeared in the 15th century. Fierce and menacing, this devil is half man and half beast. I mean, it's a typical that we see chained, the two horned figures representing man's baser animal instincts. So, you know, it's a very typical devil card that we will see. The Tower, I thought that the Tower was one that wasn't there, but she doesn't mention. Oh yeah, as with the case with the Devil card, the Tower has been recreated in a 15th century artistic style. I mean, we have many Tower cards, older decks with Tower cards, but this is one of the cards that is missing from this deck. Here we have the Star. The Moon, which is represented here by Diana the Huntress, it talks about. This is the fourth trump card that was executed by a different artist than Bonifacio Bembo, as it is similar in style to the Strength, Temperance, and Star cards. So, grab the Strength, Temperance, and the Star. Yeah, you can definitely tell those are all related. It is believed to have been painted by Antonio Sigonaro. Who knows? Who knows? Kelly, let's slaughter ancient names, right? Here we have the Sun card. Little baby in the sun, riding a cloud instead of a horse and being quite abolitious, right? Somebody I watched did a walkthrough. If I can find it, I'll put it on. It had a really funny commentary as to why angel cherubs had abs, because, you know, that's a more perfect version of a child. So I thought that was pretty funny. Here we have Judgment, or also called the Angel when it was first created. This has Bianca Maria Visconti and Francesco Sforza seated in the coffin, with an old man laying between them. In addition to this biblical interpretation of the Last Judgment, the mystical quest is almost complete as the soul triumphs over death with the promise of eternal life, which brings us to the very abbed-up cherubs here, which is the sixth and final card in the Visconti Sforza deck that has been attributed to Antonio Sigonaro. They're holding two putti, hold up a globe, a symbolic representation of heaven where the redeemed seen in the judgment card will make their new home. So it's, you know, New Jerusalem here that is promised, the promised land for us all. So that is the major arcana, which, as I said, is quite recognizable. Now I have them all flip-flop. Quite recognizable to what we see today as the major arcana, and really beautifully done. I mean, and this is a gorgeous deck. I would be very have no problems using this deck. So then we come to the minors, which of course are pip cards. So I'm going to kind of move through them quickly. They are not non-illustrated, as some have pointed out. They are illustrated. They simply don't have people and scenes in them, but they are illustrated. But this deck was clearly created for the purpose of a card game. So here we have the cups, and there are, I should open those up because they do have little titles sometimes on them. Not titles, but little flags, and those actually do say things. Oh, I thought maybe this would talk about it. It's interesting to note that the Two of Cups bears the phrase amor mio, my love, and the Four, so you already have that idea of love, right, with the Two of Cups. And then the Four of Cups has the Visconti insignia, with good there is right. So that's quite interesting as well. So 2, 3, 4, which we just talked about, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And that brings us to the court cards. And here we, of course, have the lovely Knave of Cups. He faces left, the direction of evil, and wears white gloves, a symbol of purity, which suggests good intentions in the face of malevolent forces. See, there's things that are going on here to pay attention to. It's quite interesting. The contrast between the Knave's red and white stockings, if they intentionally reflect Renaissance symbolism, may represent a conflict between purity and lust. Here we have the Knight of Cups, the Queen of Cups, and the King of Cups. Now, one of the cups, I can't remember if it, I don't know if it tells us. No. The swords, was it the Three of Swords? Yes. The Three of Swords says it's the only pip missing from the Visconti Sforza deck. The Three of Swords was recreated in a style similar to that of the other sword pips. I mean, that's quite easy. They all have the Visconti motto on the scroll that wraps around the swords in the first 5. 2, and so then 3, we know how the, if you look to, let's say, the 6, we know that the interruptive sword is thrusting up through there, and so that recreation is very easy, I think, to accomplish. I thought there was actually another minor that was missing, but I was wrong about that. So there we have the Three of Swords, the 4, the 5, we have the stability of the 4 split by the sword of the 5th. This reharmonizing, shook up a little bit in movement with the 7, the 8, the 9, and then the 10. Then we have the Knave of Swords looking all cocky, I can handle anything. The Knight of Swords, the Queen of Swords, and the King of Swords, who looks quite young to be a King of Swords. Let's see if they say anything about. No. He is the only king in the 4 suits to have a shield. Interesting. That brings us to the batons, or what we think of as wands. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Very clearly, even though these aren't curved, like I like Marseille curved swords, you can very clearly see these are swords and these are batons, so it's not really confusing. 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. The knave, which he has 2 red stockings. The knight, the lovely queen, and the king. And then lastly, one of my favorites in pip type decks, I love the coins. We have 1, we have 2, 2 coins. The ambandroit that we have here is Latin for with good there is right, which we talked about before. And it also features the heraldic son of the Visconti family in the coins. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then we have the knave, which looks like he has, let's see if they talk about it. Looks like he has 1 stocking off. No, doesn't really say anything about it. The knight, the lovely Queen of Pentacles, and the King of Pentacles. So there's a quick walkthrough of the pips. It is a gorgeous deck. I'm really, really happy to have it. Again, it is huge. Let me zoom back out here. It is quite large. No, I will not be trimming it. It's supposed to be large. I would use this for readings, but I would probably just use it for 3-card readings, because, you know, this is obviously going to be very difficult to shuffle. You probably should do a table shuffle. Even a table shuffle would be difficult. Let me just try to corner shuffle. A table shuffle would be difficult because they're just so big. You can kind of, do a little bit of a drop. There's no way for me to rifle it because, nope. No. So you're just going to have to do a really good overhand shuffle. I'll probably put it onto the floor and get at least 1 good shuffle to break it out of its suits. Just because, let me just try. Now, see, it's just impossible even to do a table shuffle because they're just, well, on my table, because they're so big. So I will probably, before I would actually pull a real reading from this, I would do a good floor shuffle and just get the suits broke up, because obviously they are so well into their suits by being in order, that I like to just generally, when I want to do quite a few good rifle shuffles, and you can kind of do the drop method, but it's still leaving chunks. So, but I will say that once I had it a little bit more mixed, it does, the cards slide really nicely. They do shift nice. It's actually not hard to overhand this. It just needs a little bit more. So what I would do, and obviously I would also be doing, did you hear how much? It's a solid deck. You can hear my crystals over there. You can also, with bigger decks like this, since if you can't get what you feel like is a good shuffle, you can do more of this style. Because again, I would really probably only be doing 3. And I didn't hit play before. What I was trying to show, now I got to talk this all the way through again. You could lay these out like this is what I was trying to show before I apparently started babbling without hitting record. And you can just pull randomly from this way, so that if this is the case in which you just overhand shuffling, it's difficult, you can pull randomly from fanning them out like this. Sometimes they'll have you kind of put your hand over until something zings. My daughter really responds well to that, and she gets good strong zings. I tend to get pretty good buzzes doing it that way. Or you can simply randomly pull your cards that you're going to use. That way, if you can't get it, if you're can't get a good overhand shuffle. I was also showing take two, that this actually, despite how large it is, you can still get, you know, quite a few configurations, right? You can still do a nice elemental spread with 4 cards, and then you can cross and maybe spirit in the middle after you've read the 4 base elements. You could, or earthly elements, you could go to spirit on there. So you can definitely do it that way. I even do, you know, my regular large tarot reading, I can do with this deck. I just found out. You can't put in the same configuration. So for me, I would be doing a past, present, and future card, which is really important for my main reading. I always have the 4 elements in my regular large tarot reading, which I can put along the bottom. And then I usually have a card that's either above and below. Sometimes it's a strength and a weakness, and I can easily pull those in the limited space that I have. You know, what you see here is what I have available to do readings for, and I have plenty of room to even do, this is all of the main cards, and there's still room if I wanted to throw an oracle, you know, with a different deck or something. If I wanted to throw another oracle, I could add some more as above, so below, strength and weakness. There's actually still, despite how large they are, I'm still able to work, because I intend, you know, this is a deck I would use because it's stunning, and it's a cheaper deck, so it's not like this is an expensive reproduction, so I can actually get down and use it quite well. So I'm going to go give these a really good shuffle and on the floor, because it's just, they're still kind of in their suits a little bit chunked up. So I'm going to give it a really good shuffle on the floor, and then I'm going to come back and do an actual reading with it. So just so you can see, like, this is a beautiful old deck, but there is absolutely no reason why you can't use this as a reading deck as well. So I will be right back. Okay, so let's just do an actual reading with them. I went and did the whole floor shuffle, got them put all upright again, so now I feel more confident. So I'm just going to do, you know, a general reading for myself of what I need to know in the next couple months, which are looking to be busy, full of things to do. I have a geomancy class coming in February. We're doing Marseille March. There's just a lot of things that are going to be fun and going on. See, they are a little bit, but it's not bad. Like, I'm trying to keep it in front of the camera, but it's actually not too bad to overhand shuffle. So we're just kind of looking to see some general information across from the 15th century forward to Kelly in the 21st, and see what we get. So I always start with the middle, which is the present. Oh, look at it. There's the Fool. And then I do the past. And then I do the future. Interesting and gorgeous. And then I do the 4 elements, and I do air, or I'm sorry, fire and air and water and earth, because that coincides with the fire, air, water, earth of a geomancy, so that if I want to take that and create a geomancy figure, I can. So that's why on my large tarot readings, that's why I do it in those particular orders. And then let's do something that might be helping from the top and a challenge from the bottom. So we'll do a helping energy and something that might be challenging in the coming months. Look at, see, they all fit on here. And I can actually pull it down a little ways and get it just a little more centered so it's not squished up to the top. So there we have, how gorgeous is that? That's very beautiful. So here we have being the present. It's the Fool's energy. It's the energy of a reminder to say, you know, it's 2017. It's the beginning of 2017. You're rolling into new things are coming, right? A new year, a new sense of possibilities and potentials. And it's a kind of a reminder to stay open to that energy, like the energy of the Fool, who is open to those things, open to the possibilities that are coming. And so I really like that energy there. Here we have the Empress behind, that sense of abundance, right? Or also the rulership here of the traditional Empress here. But I think of creativity and abundance, and it has been an abundance past year. It has had ups and downs, but overall it has been a year of just a lot of things in growth, which I've talked about when I had to pick out my number for the year, or my card for the year with Ethany's challenge. It was a number 3, growth in all different areas. Comes with growing pains, but still growth. And so I think that that's really representative of the past year for me, which I love. Moving forward, we have the King of Swords. So that's very much, again, that energy of keeping the mental space in a little bit more order, because I definitely will say that the last 3 months, kind of rolling from September, or was it October? September, I think it was through September. No, it was in August because my mom's birthday, the end of August, because her birthday, she was in the hospital. August, September, October, those were just difficult, and then it rolled into difficult holiday time. I do feel like there are many ways in which my mind got out of control and not staying really structured as it needed to be. And so we definitely, I can that reminder to kind of stay a little bit more intact mentally. And I love that the challenge is the Knave of Swords, right? So again, that idea of the mind, keeping with new ideas, not getting stuck into to old patterns, but doing fresh ideas and fresh things as well, which we also see with the Fool. So it's not surprising that kind of this energy that I need to focus on moving forward is going to be Swords, air energy, as well as the challenge energy. But I do have the Ace of Pentacles and the idea of groundedness and rootedness and earthiness being actually in my corner. I'm actually in my Wheel of the Year, which I'm doing the Wheel of the Year instead of year ahead, so I'm doing for the Sabbats, and right now until Imbolc, it's in the Yule, which is the Ace, which is the Knight of Pentacles. So it's that actively grounding, and so I quite like that that's showing up as sort of a underlying help for me. So that's quite beautiful. So then when we come down to the elements, so in regards to the passions here, we have the Seven of Swords. Now the Seven of Swords, that's like following my passions, following my creativity and those types of things. Reaching through, the sixes is that sense of harmony, but you still want to reach up through there. You can see that knife just kind of jabbing up through there as well. That sense of continually moving forward. For me, the 7 is often about growth because you have the combination of 4 plus 3. You even have the harmonizing of the 6, and again in that upward thrusting motion. So there is an idea of growth and movement. So pip-wise, when I'm not, looking at a Rider-Waite-Smith image, that's kind of the message that I'm getting out of that, because we've got that 6s here, that we have growth, but it's that harmonizing of the 6, and then we've got that energy pushing up through there in terms of creativity. And don't stop at where things are, which I think are wonderful, but keep kind of thrusting through, so to speak. Then we have the Sun card for the position of air. So this is a sense of happiness, things lightening up in the mind, which I really, really, really need. So I'm happy to see that. It's also a reminder to set, our minds, especially air signs like I am, our minds can really get obsessive on itself. And generally, are we obsessing on happy things? No, generally we're obsessing on difficult things, and the mind is rah, 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 but it's not usually over joyous things all the time. That's part of the struggle, right? So this is, I like that reminder to set the mind on moving forward with confidence and happiness and a place of fulfillment here. So I love that. In the position of water, we have the Page of Wands, right? Which to me is the learning thing. So there's some learning that I have to do about relationships. I feel like I've been learning about dealing with emotions for quite a few years now. But I think that there are definitely some things that I need to learn in my relationships and in continuing that process of balancing the mind and the emotions. So that's kind of what's popping up here. And then for the Earth position of Earth, which is the physicality of life, resources and such, we have the Five of Cups. So the number 5 is disruptive, right? That is a disruptive number. It doesn't necessarily mean that the disruption is negative. Sometimes you need a shakeup, right? But there is some sort of emotional discordance going on, because this is stuff, this is the future card, like this is kind of stuff going on right now. And I am feeling very happy. I've been really resourceful. So these things do kind of reflect things happening in the moment and what I need to be aware of. And definitely in terms, there are, this makes sense. Let's just leave it at that. Sometimes the cards can be too personal, right? When you're just trying to give an example. But anyways, that makes sense to me. And so, yeah, I think this reads beautifully. Like, I absolutely love it. So again, if I wanted to do a geomancy figure, which for myself I often do, here we would have the 7, which would be a single active element. We have the sun, which is 19. So we would also have that as a single dot. We have the knave here, so we have 10, 11, so another single dot, and then we have 6, which is even. So I quite like that because that gives me the dragon's tail. And so that is Cauda Draconis, and this is endings and completions, letting go of the past, right, so that you can start to move forward. You're walking away from a certain door, walking away from 2017, that kind of put an end to those things and start to move forward. If I'm using that in an oracle-y sense, you know, in a quick oracle-y sense, that's how I would read that. So there we go. My first reading with the gorgeous Visconti Sforza by Mary Packard. So I quite think this is well worth the money that you pay for getting access to these beautiful images that take us completely back to our roots in tarot and in such a beautiful way. So I hope that you've enjoyed this, and I hope you have a wonderful day.